international chess professionals converge in St. Louis for the 2017 Spring Chess Classic. It's day 7 of 9 in the 2017 Spring Chess Classic, and this thing isn't over yet. The questions are, who will walk away with an improved name and standing in the chess world, and of course, the prize money. The 2017 Spring Chess Classic features a combined prize fund of more than 50 grand. Win the top prize in Group A, that will get you $6,000. $4,000 is the prize for Group B, and the top prize for Group C is $5,000. That's because Group C is actually stronger than Group B. After 7, Varakobian leads Group A, with Darius Svirts and Yaro Zirabuk hot on his tail. Tomorrow's key games include Zirabuk versus Ipatov and Zhang versus Svirts. Can the second and third placers advance up the leaderboard? I'm here with international master Awonder Liang, and he is sitting with 6.5 points. With 2 rounds left to go, that's pretty good. I'd say your chances of winning the field are pretty good. What do you say?
I guess I still have to play the last 2 games, but...
You have Akshat and...
Lewis.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, you got a full point right now as we speak, so...
Yeah, and Shrila started out with 5 out of 5 as, like me, so... it's still not so clear yet, I guess.
Not so clear, but it's. I don't want to jinx it. But it's stacked in your favor. 14-year-old Awonder Liang. Awonder, today you had white against Nyzhnyk Paikidze, and you came away with victory. So let's take a look at the game and show us what happened.
I think in this position, like, quite a few choices were pretty good for black. Even after b5, it wasn't that bad, because after takes rook e1, I think rook d8 was a pretty strong move. And if rook e7, knight d5 again, so I think I was planning to play like h3 or maybe king g2. Like king g2. Not exactly sure what black can play here, but I checked for like 2 seconds with the computer. It says it's equal, but I'm not so sure it was that easy for black either here. Maybe like h6 or something, because it's kind of difficult to move any pieces. Knight d5 is also possible always here in this position with this kind of endgame, and then I think white should be better here as well, so it's not really possible to do that. Another possibility was also rook a8, I guess. And after rook e7, knight d5, rook d7, king f6 is strong again. So rook a8, and now I think I was planning to play like bishop b4 to c5. And I think white should be slightly better. But again, I don't think it's that much, because black is always very solid. So after rook takes e1, yeah, I thought this was kind of a mistake. Bishop f4, and now b3 was kind of strong, but I kind of overestimated this move early on, because I realized that after a takes b3, there's bishop c1, a4, bishop b2, a5. It's not so clear which knight move is the best. I thought knight c8 was better. d5 takes bishop d4. I wasn't sure about the valuation of this endgame. I guess like king f1 seems reasonable. I thought it should be pretty difficult for black to defend with the a pawn and the weak kingside pawns with the 2 bishops. But what Nazi didn't really make much sense if she saw this line, because after knight d5, b a4, bishop b8, we get like the same type of position, but I have an extra pawn a3, so that's pretty good for white, I guess. Because in many lines, like let's say after bishop takes a4, bishop takes c6, knight c7, I guess. Like after I play like push a6, and then I can bring the other pawn to a5 and put the bishop on b6. So it should be winning. Instead she played knight f4, Bishop takes c6, knight e2 check. Bishop d5. Yeah, like I said, I think this endgame should be lost for black, or at least very difficult to defend. But after knight c2, I think it's already clearly lost, because bishop d2, and bishop e3. And once this bishop is traded, the knight will be very passive against the a-pawn. So I guess there's very little hope now. Bishop takes, king e2. There was one nuance, I guess. If bishop c6 with the idea of bishop d7, there's knight d4, so unfortunately I couldn't trap the knight like that. But bishop takes a7 should be winning anyway. King f6, king d3. Yeah, there was a little trap here after bishop takes f7, knight c6, and knight b4 check. But after king c4, black just gets into zugzwang eventually. And f4. Yeah, so if I guess h5, h4 wins basically. Because if the knight ever moves, then I have bishop f3, king b8, king b6, and there's no knight c8. So after like f3, h4, f4, h5, after knight g8, well, if I played like bishop takes f3 now, then king b8, king b6, knight c8 check, which is still winning for white, but it just takes longer. And after h5, black's in zugzwang, because after king b8, king b6 wins. So I guess after knight g8, bishop takes f3. Yeah, this is basically winning.
All right. Well, great job, and thank you for going over the game with me.
Thank you.
Awonder, you are playing once again in the 2017 U.S. Junior Closed Championship. Moments ago, signing the contract. Very exciting stuff. But you've been in that event for a few years now. At least, how many years have you been playing in that?
Just 2 actually.
Just 2? Okay. Would you say that you have a rival amongst the juniors at this point?
I mean, Jeffrey Shang has been beating me quite often, but I'm not sure if he's playing this time.
Well, that's the million-dollar question, really, because last year you finished second behind Jeffrey, who took the entire field. So.
He also beat me in that tournament.
Yeah.
So.
I don't want to start anything, but let me start something here. No, but hopefully he is playing. I don't know either.
And I guess also there's Rufeng Li, who I have mostly an even score with, so I guess you could consider that kind of like a rivalry instead of a one-sided, kind of thing.
It's funny that you mentioned Rufeng as well, because you and Rufeng and Jeffrey are all in this tournament, but in the 3 separate fields.
Yeah.
So you're not meeting at all. It's like we're really holding you until that junior close, assuming all of them play. So you're 14 years old.
Yeah.
Do you know if you are going to, in your heart, do you feel like someday you're going to make it big as a pro chess player, or what are your aspirations going forward? People want to know about the young guys.
To be honest, at this moment, I don't really want to think about so long term. I just kind of want to keep improving, because there's many parts of my game that I still need to improve in. So for now, I'll just try and work on those and see how far I can get, I guess.
I think that's a good philosophy. Awonder, best of luck to you, man. And I know sitting with 6.5 out of 7 points, this is a pretty superb tournament. So let's take a look at the standings with just 2 rounds left in his group. If there's one word to describe Awonder, it's definitely humble. This kid has 6.5 out of 7. What has been an amazing tournament for him, but like he said, he has not clinched it yet. The game of the day for Tuesday, May 23, has to be Kirilla versus Fear, the only other competitors besides Awonder who can still win Group B. After 8 rounds, I'm here with another man from Group C, and I think we all know him pretty well. Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez today had black against Illya Nyzhnyk, and Alejandro, you come away with the victory. Group C, we've been talking about this oddball group because there's only 6 players, it's a double round robin. And what kind of change in prep would go into a double round robin than the single round robin? Do you prepare more for each player?
It's definitely got its psychological differences compared to a single round robin, because, well, you're facing the same person twice. And that means that the result of the first game sometimes impacts a little bit about how you feel going into the second game against the same person. I haven't changed my prep too much based on this, but I have been a little bit more worried about what people like to do and how they've been playing in the tournament. So, for example, after 5 rounds, I was on -3. So I know a lot of people were hungry to come and beat me because, well, they had already played me once and I had lost all my games. So they wanted to, come back and beat me again. So there's definitely that uncomfortableness, I guess, of playing somebody twice and having lost the first game.
Well, today you had what I would consider a pretty decent victory over at Nyzhnyk. Take us through the game and show us the points.
Yeah, I'll go pretty quickly. Illya is a very quick player, and he decimated me on round 1. I mean, it should have been a draw at many points, and I decided I'm going to keep pressing, and at some point, I was just lost, and that was just really bad. But today he played some kind of odd beat opening here with g3 and allowing this e5 very early. And I played, I think, a good move, knight ec6, knight a3, and f5, opening up the position on the king side while his pieces are passive on the queen side. I think this is very thematic. Already his position is very unpleasant. I mean, I'm not sure I'm winning, but it's very unpleasant. I got into a little bit of time trouble here. Actually, bishop c6 surprised me, but to be fair, I didn't know what else he was going to do. The point of this last move that I played, bishop f6, is to play bishop g5, and this rook on c1 doesn't have a lot of squares. On top of that, he really wants to play queen d2 in many variations, because the queen here attacks h6, and there's tricks with knight takes a5. But here, bishop f6, bishop g5 just stops anything like that. So perhaps not really finding any moves, he decided to take on c6, but now his light squares are obviously very weak. Knight takes c6, bishop a3, at least he removes the knight from b4. And I just started playing kind of natural moves, rook e6 to double up on the e-file, knight g2, bishop g5 just to not allow knight f4, rook c2, rook c8, queen f1. And here probably didn't play the best. I mean, I think queen d5 is probably just better. But I have a stable advantage and time was kind of ticking, so I decided to play logical moves that didn't let him at least break out of this position. So queen h7 makes sense, just to attack the pawn on d3. Rook goes to d1, and bishop g6, I think, is probably the worst move that I played in the game, but I didn't know exactly what to do. And it was a comfortable enough move that it forced him to do something, and it was very unclear what he's doing. The bishop is slightly better placed on g6, because sometimes the rook on e8 is defended. And this is kind of weird, but here I just didn't see anything immediate, so I decided to improve my position slightly. I'm sure the computer will hate this move. I haven't looked at it, obviously, yet, but I would be very surprised if it likes bishop g6. And one of the many ideas is that it allows me to play queen f7, queen f3, which I did in the game. So he plays rook b2 just to defend the first rank, knight e1. And here again, because time was a little low, I decided queen e2, trade queens was the safest way. Because after takes, I have an obvious bind. King f1, and here I have a trick, or I mean, I can trick myself. If I take on e1, bishop takes d3, king g1, I actually cannot take on b1 at the end and win a pawn because my rook on e8 is hanging. So that's why I play king f7, because now the rook's defended. Rook e7 perhaps was a little clumsy, but it's probably fine. Rook a1 just shows how pathetic the rooks are, really. He's withdrawing from this idea of rook takes e1, bishop takes, and winning a pawn, but I mean, rook a1 is such a sad move to play. I played bishop f5 mainly because... Why did I play bishop f5? I don't remember. I think I just like... Oh yeah, there are some ideas with f4 that he had, and now I can always just take and I'm threatening bishop h3. That was the point. Also, the bishop is just better placed than f5. Now the rook's defended, so I don't need the bishop on g6, and the bishop can now transfer to other diagonals. He played bishop b2, I played h5, threatening maybe to play h4, why not? Knight g2, again, time was low, so I decided to repeat moves. He's forced to go like this. And I played knight b4, which is obviously just forces some stuff. For example, if he goes knight e1, I was just defend on d3. Probably the easiest is to keep the bind. As you can see, white actually only has one threat, which is bishop takes d4. And if I play bishop f6, he kind of runs out of moves. He doesn't really have anything to play here. Cannot take on a5 because his bishop on b2 is hanging. It's just a sad position all around. He's not exactly in zugzwang, but I really don't know what his next move is. Meanwhile, I'm going to slowly improve my position, play something like b6, c5. Even knight c2 is going to be an idea at some point. He can't really go rook c1 because I have knight a2, knight c3. So it's just really sad. But bishop takes d4, I think, just loses because bishop takes d3. And I saw this before playing knight b4, that after king g1, bishop c2, I thought rook e1 was forced. I don't see where else the rook can go. Rook takes is forced because I don't have bishop takes b3 because knight e5 check, and then suddenly white is winning. Well, perhaps winning is a strong word, but the tables have turned. Rook takes e1 check is forced. Doesn't matter if he takes with the rook or the knight, the trick is the same. Knight takes e1, bishop takes b3, and well, if he moves the knight somewhere, like e5, then after king e6, between the pair of bishops, the extra pawn, and the weak king on g1, I mean, it's completely winning position. He decided to play knight takes a5, which just makes him suffer less, because after bishop d5, which is what I was planning from the beginning, the bishop is completely dominating the knight, and there's no way to prevent b6. For example, if he plays rook b1, b6 anyway, because he cannot take on b4, because e1 hangs with mate. And there's actually no way he can defend against b6, so he just actually lost. He played bishop c3, and I have two ways of winning. I thought knight a2 was winning. Attacks the bishop, and I can play b6 next move, or what I did in the game, which I thought was also winning, bishop f6. And here he resigned because, well, the only move he has is bishop takes, and I take. I'm obviously threatening b6. And after rook b1, b6, knight b3, bishop takes b3, he cannot take on b3 again because rook e1, he has to move the knight away. And now there's this trick that both pieces are under attack, but I have a counter trick with rook d8, which threatens rook d1 check. If takes, rook d1 wins a piece because of back rank. And if knight e3 to defend against rook d1, then rook d3 defends the bishop. And I'm up a piece. It's not the only way to win the piece, but it's what I saw as the easiest, or the cleanest actually. Maybe not the easiest. So, I mean, I'm pretty happy with this game. Overall, I think I was just better after I played d4, and I don't think that I let go at any point. I don't think my opponent got any counter chances. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how this game went.
It was a pretty ending.
It was a pretty ending, actually. It's very unusual that you actually get this motif to trap a knight on the rim. It happens once in a while, but obviously it's not very common. But it's nice that, you know, the coordination of the pieces here is just one tempo enough that the knight's fully trapped. For example, if he had the knight already on g2, he can play something like knight e3, and suddenly it's not so clear because he has these tricks that we were talking about with rook b1. So yeah, I mean, I saw this before I played knight before, and it is a pretty finish, I think. It's a nice finish.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you in this particular tournament, but you're wearing a few different hats here. We know that you're the recruiter and the coach for SLU, but you've also been doing some recruiting work for this tournament. Tell us about the players you brought in here.
Well, I'm very happy with the fact that I'm involved with the St. Louis Chess Club and chess in St. Louis in many different ways, and this is actually one of the projects I'm most proud about. The Classic Series, one per season, is an extremely important part of American chess. I think that it's a little overlooked because obviously it's not as flashy as the Singfield Cup or the US Championship, but the players that are at this level, the players that are playing the A, B, and C groups here, need stepping stones to actually make it to the elite. And it's not easy to find tournaments where all of your opponents are rated, you know, 2500 plus or 2600 plus, which are the cases for the B and A groups. I pretty much try to contact as many people as I can to find a combination of interesting players and players usually that are hungry. Because if you can see, the fighting spirit in this event is really, really high. You see victories with black and white consistently. You don't see a lot of quick draws. You see that there's a mix of youth, which is obviously part of the reason we do this tournament, is to train the youth of America. That's the reason that Rui-Feng Li, Sam Sevian, and Jeffrey Xiong are playing. We're also training the St. Louis University team members, which are in Group B, Jamil Jan, Ali Marandi, and in Group A, Yaroslav Jerebuk, and Dariusz Wirtz. And we bring together players that I think are very interesting. For example, we have a lot of Latin blood in this tournament. We have Alexander Fier from Brazil, which I saw a player that is extremely active. I think he's one of the most active players in the entire world. Sandro Mareco from Argentina, that is basically at his peak. He just won the zonal tournament in South America. And he's extremely strong, and for most of these players, a lot of the time you have to travel to Europe or to just play a couple of times against 2600s. So part of the idea is that we bring those players to them so that they have consistently good practice, consistently good games, and that they can improve without having to leave US soil.
And I think it's really cool whenever I get to talk to someone who says, not only is this my first time playing at the chess club, but this is my first time playing in the US or even visiting the US. So that's really cool to have that perspective too.
Right. It's not very good for us to like play the same people all the time. And it's something that happens a lot in chess when you're in one zone and you just play against the same players over and over again. And it's just not beneficial for your chess because you get used to their styles, and you're not actually experiencing new things. And well, players travel all over the world exactly to do that, to like not be playing against the same people all the time. And it's nice that we can bring players from very far away, like Argentina, like Brazil, that will show us new styles and that will show us that you know, how chess is treated in their own places. And for them, it's nice to come here to do something similar and to try to prove their style here in St. Louis, and of course to visit the club. I mean, South America is really far from America. I mean, people kind of underestimate the distance. Yeah. But it's good to have them here for sure.
I couldn't have said it better. Alejandro, it was great talking to you, man.
Ben, always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the standings in Group C after 8 rounds. There's only 2 left.
Yeah.
With the slightly different schedule, Group C has just ended round 8, and Sam Sevian is in the lead, and it is all in his hands. With a full point ahead of the nearest competitor, he is likely to win. On Tuesday, Sam has the black pieces against Alexander Shimanov. Shimanov can still technically win the field, but it's a long shot. Stay with us for the next 2 days. Tuesday, May 23rd's round begins at 1 p.m., the penultimate showdowns. And then the final day of play, on Wednesday, May 24, begins a little bit earlier at 11 a.m. Central, just in case we need to go to playoffs later in the day. See the move by move live as it happens at chess24.com and uschesschamps.com.